Surfing fans and friends of mine out there in this great big world. I usually give like a spiritual talk. I quite enjoy doing that because I guess I spend so much time myself meditating and reading and going over things. But the truth is that I also have this passion for surfing, and as a surfer, it's kind of a love hate relationship with other surfers. When here in Texas, if you're out alone, you're kind of like ready to welcome other people to come surf with you. So today I'm going to give you some tips on how to surf in crowds, where to sit in a crowd, and everything that comes along with that. And then I'll try to think of a few other tips too, to as along the way to help you realize what to do while you're out in the water, how to stay safe, how to stay out of the way of hitting other people or hitting a swimmer in the water accidentally or something. But a few things like board awareness and things like that we'll go over too. So, okay, so before you go to the beach, before you ever leave your house, let's say you don't live um, right next to the beach, maybe you have to travel 30 minutes to an hour away to get to the beach. In the old days, we used barometric pressure clocks. These barometric pressure sensing clocks would tell us whenever the pressure went down, then that meant there's a storm on the way. Like if it got down below 30, down into 29, 28, I don't know what they call them, millibars or whatever, but once the pressure goes down, that means there's going to be waves coming pretty soon. Usually, always that was kind of the case. It's hardly rarely that here in Texas that um, we don't get a low pressure system without some sort of wave action, either a day or two before, sometimes maybe even a week before the low pressure comes. If it's coming from way up north, like Canada, and pushing its way down pretty fast, uh, there's a good chance that we're going to get some waves before and maybe after the front comes through too. So, yeah, your barometric pressure, and if you look at the weatherman's charts they put on the screens, they have the lines of pressure, and the lines of pressure are really close to each other. Several lines means that it's going to definitely be a high impact on the waves and the size of the waves. So also, if you're looking at the pressure or the weather, maybe you're on a surf forecast site or something. You can also look at the gap between the waves. So the buoy readings they call them, and what it is if the gap between the waves here in Texas, anywhere from 6 to 8 seconds. Means it's going to be a couple feet. If they say 2 to 3 foot or 6 to 8 seconds, then it's going to be maybe a couple feet or something like that. And if it goes up to like 10 seconds, then it's going to be much bigger. 2 or 3 foot swell could be turned into 4 foot waves or 4 or 5 foot waves by the time they hit the shore. I've heard of Hawaii having 16 to 32 second gaps between the sets of their waves, and that's insane. That means a 12-foot wave is actually going to be like a 32-foot wave. Get a drink. So yeah, so pay attention to these things before you make the trip down, and have a plan. When you go to the beach, tell yourself, I'm going to go to this beach, or I'm going to go to surf that beach. Factor in, well, are the crowds going to be crazy? Factor in, if you don't mind surfing around a bunch of people, how can you handle, or where should you sit in that crowd? Before I tell that story, I'm going to tell you a Halloween story, because this is Halloween. And Halloween's on Monday, and we're having a party at my house tonight. Everybody's going to dress up and have a real good time. And I know I'm switching subjects, but here you go. Back in the 90s, I lived in Houston, and I either went to Galveston or Surfside. Surfside was actually a little closer to my house because there was back roads that we could take to get to Surfside. But every once in a while, I like to come to Galveston too. And anyway, this one day, I was going to drive to Surfside. So I started my trek and heading towards Surfside, and something inside of me said, "No, let's go to Galveston. Let's go surf in Galveston." So I went out of my way and went farther over 610, over from 288 over to 45, and then down 45. And I get to the beach at 61st Street, and the thing back then was to always pop up at 61st Street just to see what the waves look like. But some intuition inside of me said, just drive down the beach and check them out. So I checked out all the spots, all the way down to the flagship. And there were a few guys surfing on the west side of the flagship. And I don't know, just something inside of me said, yeah, this is the place to go. So I parked my car and went out surfing. And this is kind of after work, so it was in the afternoonish. It's still daylight, but in the afternoon. And I surfed with about 2 or 3, 4 other fellows, pretty much right by the T head. It was breaking pretty good right there. A couple, maybe I think probably about 3 to 4 foot that day. It was a decent day. I remember that. Basically an uneventful surf trip, until I drove home and got home, and we turned on the news, and they were showing me and a couple other people surfing the flagship. But what we didn't know was that a young couple committed suicide before we got to the beach, and we were surfing right on top of them, and we didn't know it. And that just kind of freaked me out a little bit. So there's your Halloween story for today. I have many more Halloween stories to share with you. You guys know that. My middle name is Spooky. So anyway, back to the lineup. Okay, so I promised you some tips on lineups. I like to attribute my knowledge of lineups from one of the first trips I took to California. I was basically sitting on the seashore, and I think I was eating a bag of nuts or something, or I was eating something, and I started basically, on the beach, throwing little pieces of crumbs of bread or peanuts or whatever I had with me to the seagulls. And I noticed that with the seagulls, it wasn't always the biggest and strongest seagull that got the food. Sometimes it was the fastest, that's for sure. Sometimes it was just plumb luck. You throw it at a weird angle, or you throw it to another bird, and it just, whoever it lands closer to, sometimes they just get the food. And I noticed that the same thing kind of applies to riding waves. It's not always the strongest or the fastest that gets the wave. Sometimes it's the person who's the most persistent, or the most patient, waiting your turn. I mean, there's going to be enough waves for everybody, usually, around the world, except for maybe California. And I don't know any other countries that are as crazy as that, other than Pipeline in Hawaii. But when you paddle out into a lineup, it's like you have to kind of take in the fact that, okay, maybe I'll catch 3 waves, maybe I'll catch 4 waves. And I did that one time in Virginia Beach. I pulled up to First Street, and First Street is a spot with the best wave in Virginia. Basically, was right there at the jetty at First Street. So there must have been 50 guys out in the water, and and Virginia Beach crowds everybody into a real small area for surfing in the summertime. Anyway, I pulled up to the beach one day and saw like 50 guys out, and I'm like, man, I probably won't even catch 5 waves. It's just so crowded. And I said, well, I'm here. I might as well go. There's no sense trying to check out any other beaches. It probably won't be enough daylight or whatever reason. I just decided to stay and go surf there. And I'm not the best surfer in the world, but I'm certainly not the worst. I guess I'm kind of like, I'm not average Joe, but maybe just a step or two above average Joe. And maybe a step down between expert. At least that's the way I feel when I surf Waco Surf Park. Anyway, I paddled out of Virginia Beach that day and started catching waves. And here I am thinking I might get 3 or 4, maybe 5 waves if I get lucky. I started counting them, and I counted like 15 waves before I caught myself and said, dude, you've already caught 15 waves. And I'm not a wave hog, and I'm not a wave snob. I just learned how to pay my dues in a lineup. So to let you know a little bit about a lineup from the outside, if you're not one of the boys, if you're not one of the crew that normally surfs that break, and you're paddling into the water, sometimes like a visiting surfer who's maybe a pro or a good surfer will show up, and we'll give him 1 wave. And if he performs well on the 1 wave, then he can come back and get a slot in the lineup. If he didn't perform well, if he falls and just totally embarrasses himself, then he had to get in the back of the line and catch the scraps with the groms. But yeah, so my personal progression in Virginia Beach was about almost 5 to 7 years before I started making friends out in the water. I mean, you can say hi to people, and they might say hi to you, but that's about all you're going to get out of them. But that's just, it's not mean or rude. It's just that they want you to pay your dues. But over the years, as the years passed by, and I kept surfing First Street with the crew there, I became accepted as one of the crew on at the locals at the beach. So showing up and expecting little and then getting a lot is a great reward. Learning to have patience, learning to know the fact that you size everybody up in the lineup. Like this guy over here might be the king cheese of the day, and you don't want to mess with him or get in his way. And then here's another couple semi pros out there. You probably don't want to get in their way either, because they're not going to give up a wave for you, and they're probably going to catch the wave they try to paddle for. So you find your spot, okay, so this guy over to my left, he's riding shoulders. He's no problem. He's not going to be an issue. And these other 2 kids, they don't know what they're doing. They're just out here getting in the way. And then you kind of say, all right, well, I can sit right here and see what comes my way. And just like with the birds on the beach that day, a lot of times that's not a bad decision. Kind of like maybe right in the middle, and then trying your best to catch the best wave that you can catch. So when it comes to the females that come out and surf with us, you can classify them into 3 or 4 categories. All right, there's women who come out there who really rip, and they are accepted as one of the crowd. They may not come out as much as other people, but if they come out and they show and they know what they're doing, and they're respectful, and then they become one of the in team. Then there's another one comes out with a bikini on, who doesn't know how to surf, and she's just out there to get guys' attentions and try to maybe meet her next new boyfriend. Then there's another one that comes out there that wants to surf, but every time a heavy wave comes their way, they'll start paddling for it. So you want to give a female a chance at a wave, because it may be the only chance they get. So other people in the lineup may not be as nice as you. So you want to at least give them a shot at getting the wave, because inside we all want everybody to catch a wave and have a good time. It's not like, hey, it's all our waves and we're not sharing with you guys. That's not the way it really is in reality. In reality, the reality is that we love uh, any companionship out there, female companionship, other guys, sharing waves with you. But anyway, so they paddle for the wave. The females paddle for this wave, but they back off at the last second. They get scared. Something. I mean, it can be frightening. It can be scary, but it's better. It's way better to take 2 or 3 on the head than to miss 100 waves. And as soon as you start missing waves like that, and all the other people see it, all the other guys and girls see it, then you just got pushed back to the bottom of the lineup. So now nobody's going to give you a chance to catch the waves. You destroy things for yourselves. So you ladies that are out there and you're trying and you just have that fear come over you, to go past that fear, just take the drop. There's a saying in surfing that goes, you don't know until you go. So take that drop in, spread eagle, stay low, you'll make it through the drop. Virginia Beach isn't that big, and Texas isn't that big either. I mean, I think the biggest I've surfed Texas, I want to say, was maybe 8 to 9 feet, somewhere in that range during a storm. But anyway, okay, so then the last type of female surfer is the one that's just out there in the way, doesn't desire to surf or to learn to surf. They're just basically a nuisance. But I don't know if it's cool to categorize people, but when you're in a lineup, that's basically what you're doing. You're categorizing everybody and trying to figure out where your slot is. Some days you may be towards the top of the tier. I've had days in Virginia Beach where I was at the top of the tier, and then I had a couple guys show up and said, this guy can't even surf and he's ruling the point. I don't know if they're talking about me. I always think that when I hear somebody talking smack that they're talking to me about me on it, but I guess that's just maybe my ego or some over inflated sense of awareness. So those are some tips about where you should sit in the lineup. And then the most crucial thing is wave selection. So if you're trying to pick which wave to take, the best advice I can do is to tell you to do is to watch what other people take. If the wave comes your way and you paddle for it, and then you decide not to, maybe you felt it was too thick, watch it as it goes underneath you. So you're surfing, you're paddling and paddling and paddling. The wave comes, and it goes like this, and you try to get in and go down, and you couldn't go down for some reason. Maybe it got a little bit thick. But watch that wave and see what it does down the road, for as far as your vision will let you see. And you might find that, yeah, that wave was a crappy wave, or it closed out, or maybe there's some reason why you just didn't catch it that you couldn't see. But if you start paying attention to all the waves that pass you by, just be a watcher of these waves. As you're sitting there in the lineup, basically just looking out into the horizon, looking for swells that might be bubbling up on the horizon and that might be coming your way. In Texas, it's kind of easy to see waves coming far away, just like as it is in Mexico. In Mexico, you can see the waves coming from a mile away. They're that big. Here in Texas, you can see a wave about maybe a half mile out, headed your way, or a set of waves, and then you get all excited. It's like, hey, our sets are coming. Their sets are coming. And there's some special hoots and hollers that you learn when you surf in a lineup, and when you hoot a certain way, that tells all the other surfers in the water, hey, something's coming. Hey, something's coming. So wave selection is very important. Sometimes the first wave in the set comes and a bunch of guys and girls will turn and try to take that very first wave because it looks decent. But if it's on a bigger day and let's say you take off on it and it closes out on you, or you miss it or something. Now you're stuck on the inside and you got to turn around, and now you got to take 3 or 4 waves on the head. Sometimes it's a better idea to take that second or third wave. And if you start watching your sets in that day, whatever day you're out there, you'll start noticing sets that start having characteristics like that. You'll notice that the first wave is good, but the second one's better, or the third one may have a lump in it. Sometimes the ties are going back out, and the second and third wave might have a little bit of a texture, a little bit of a lump to it, and it could be a little bit harder to catch or harder to ride. If it's steep enough and it has a lump in front of it, if you go off to an angle and try to go around that hump, because if you stay going straight down the hump, the wave kind of bubbles up with that hump and just gets fat, and it doesn't break, and it's a big mess. But sometimes you can get down the side of it and go left or right real steep, and shoot your, even before you try standing up, you shoot your board down into what you see the deepest pit of the side of that wave on the side of the hump. Those are just a couple thoughts that come to mind about wave selection. Let's see what else. Yeah, I guess going back to the lineup situation. If you're new to surfing and you don't know how to surf around other people yet, it's sometimes better just to pick a spot. You can surf near the other surfers, but go over on the shoulder. Go a little bit farther. Go at least 20 yards, 30 yards past where the crew of surfers seem to be, controlling a point or a certain break. The reason for that is for your safety and the safety of the other surfers. You're not necessarily aware of where your board is at all times. When you eat it on a wave and you're getting tossed and cookies are spinning everywhere, you don't know where your board is. So with that in mind, you may be under the water getting tossed and turned while your board is up on the surface of the water, and the wave behind you, as you come out of the water, you come up and you look, and here comes your board, and it comes flying right down onto your head. And that did happen to me many years ago. I had 9 stitches because I was a dumbass and I went underwater. I dove off my board and went under a wave, and I was just riding the wave to shore. It wasn't even really surfing anymore. I was just trying to catch one to take to shore. And I came out of the water, and a big wave behind me dumped my surfboard right on my forehead. Yeah, it hurt. And I had to walk like 3/4 of a mile to get back to my vehicle. It was just one of those spots where you had to park far away. And I was losing blood. I had blood all in my towel and everything. And I was in my wetsuit. It was pretty much a horrible experience. And I called my ex to come pick me up and take me to the hospital, but she couldn't. So I got in the car, my work van, and I drove to one of those ER facilities, and they said, well, that they couldn't patch me up. They're gonna have to send me to the hospital. So I got sent to the hospital with 9 stitches for being a dumbass. So control your board is the most important thing. When you're done riding the wave, if you can kick the board around like this, just flip it backwards and get it over the back of the wave with you where you can grab it. Or you can just lie down on your board, lie back down on your board and grab it with both hands. And when you get really close to shore, don't dig your feet in your fins in the sand, but you can use your hands as a gauge to see how deep the water is. And you can just kind of spin your board around and go out behind the waves and keep the tail of the board in the deeper water, so you don't break off your fins. So that's another tip. Being a newbie surfer, there's so much to learn. There's all the etiquette that I'm going over right now, just some of the etiquette that, you know, where you should sit, where you should behave, how you watch your board, who you're nice to. Don't be mad or upset or feel that somebody's being mean if they don't talk to you out in the water. Some surfers just don't like to talk in the water. It's kind of a spiritual experience for them to be out there in nature. And if somebody's over there blabbing all about pro football or pro soccer, whatever, who knows, whatever they're talking about, it can be distracting from the essence of us being out there. So a mild hi, you know, or just say hey, you know, is kind of just letting someone know, hey, I'm here. Um, if you go out and start feeling like you can control your board, for one, you have some self-awareness of what you're doing and where other people are. Because a lot of times newbie surfers don't look left and right. They get this like zone where they're just straight focus this and this is all they can see. They got like blinders on and they can't see their peripheral vision. When you become a good surfer, you start looking left, right, left. You know, make sure that your wave is clear before you start taking off on the wave. Eventually, you'll know if two or three other guys are battling with a wave for you. You'll know right where they are, and you'll know if they got a better shot at catching it than you. The guy that's closest to the curl to his feet first catches the wave. That's his wave or her wave. Not every single guy that paddles for a wave is going to catch it. That's just the way it goes. You can watch footage of lower trestles, and there'll be 10 to 15 guys paddling for a wave, and you know, sometimes it's just sometimes just the best surfer or the guy in the best position gets the wave, and it's not, like I said, it's not always the best all the time or the fastest. Sometimes it's just dumb luck. Sometimes you're just in the right spot at the right time, and sometimes the pro might give you a wave. Years ago when I was surfing Virginia Beach at First Street, there's this pro surfer who won one of the pipeline contests in Hawaii one year. His name was Wes Lane. When Wes came out, it was like school was in session because the guy was so good. I mean, he just had so much talent. He was such a good surfer that school was on, and you wanted to surf near Wes so you can pick up what he was saying. But anyway, this one day that we were out there, the waves were pretty good. It's probably about 3 to 4 foot and just barreling, just super really good waves. And Wes was catching his fair share of waves. But I remember one day that he and I were battling for a wave. And then Wes just says, you take it. So he turned around and backed off, and I caught that wave. And that was one of the best waves I had all day. And it was thanks to generosity of a pro surfer. So the pros want you to catch waves too. I mean, that's what it's all about, is sharing the stoke. And Val and I, my girlfriend and I, we teach surfing in Galveston. So if any of you guys are watching this video somehow, somewhere, you hear about this video, we do give lessons on the island, and our lessons are geared to turning you into a real surfer. So we're not just out there pushing you into waves. We're actually teaching you all the things you need to know, the sweet spot on the boards, the wave heights and the wave selection that you might think about, how to paddle the right way, what's the best way to pop to your feet. There's so many things and so many things to work on. And as far as popping to your feet goes, I mean, you just watch some pros on TV and then just try to watch and emulate what they do. Practice at home. Practice 15 to 20 pop-ups a night for at least a week or two before you go into the water. And it really does help. Lay a piece of scotch tape, or not scotch tape, masking tape. Yeah, that's it, masking tape. Lay some masking tape on the floor with a line. And when you pop to your feet, you want your feet spread about at least 1.5 to 2 feet apart. And you want to be on that tape, on the center of that tape every single time. So you take your measurements of your surfboard and mark end to end on that tape and lie on the carpet then jump up and try to land on the tape every single time and see where your feet land. And then if they land in the wrong spot, then fix it. Real quickly, you can fix your feet. I'm one of those kind of surfers when I grew up surfing that once I planted my feet somewhere, that's kind of where I wanted my feet to stay. But as I grew into longboarding and then more aggressive progressional surfing on shortboards, I would put my feet closer to the edge of the board. If I was riding a rail real hard, I would spread my stance off. If I was trying to shoot for an air or something like that, um, it's easier to land a board with a wide lower stance than it is to have a narrow stance. I watched a young lady at Waco a couple weeks ago. We went to Waco, and she had no stance. She's from Austin, so she's never surfed in the ocean before, but she's picking up surfing at the pool, which is cool. But someone needs to tell this woman, you cannot get up on your board with your feet so close together and expect to make the wave. So your stance is very important. And I personally like to have a stance where I can kind of fold my front knee in a little bit and pull my knees together and have it kind of like a snowboard stance where I'm front foot is angled just a little bit and the back foot straight on the board. Of course, longboarding is a total different thing. I mean, in longboarding, it's all about style and being graceful. But let's see if there's any other tips I can think of to give you guys. So if you drive down to the beach, like I said, and if you don't mind surfing with other people, then know that you're going to have to, one, pay your dues to be accepted in that lineup. Don't think just because you show up and you know the person that they're going to say hi to you in the water. I know that's kind of rude, but nobody wants to sit there with all their bros and everything. And here comes Cucamonga with all this big hat and webbed gloves and all this stuff, and then paddling up and going, "Hey, Doug, how you doing?" Anyway, we won't pick on the kooks too much because that's not cool. I guess that's it for now. Yeah, so that was fun. I enjoyed talking about the etiquette and the tips on surfing better. Remember, like I said, wave selection is very crucial. Safety is very crucial. Having fun is very crucial. Awareness is very crucial. If you're out there practicing awareness all the time, then it's a form of meditation. And that takes you into much deeper awareness of your surroundings and consciousness that expands instead of contracts. And you can take those blinders off eventually when you have surfed enough waves and practice that awareness. So with that thought, we will end it now. Say aloha, mahalos to all you beautiful people out there, and blue skies to all you skydivers. I know if you're skydiving, you probably won't be listening to this one, but maybe you want to take up surfing one day, and then these words of advice may apply to you. All right, guys and girls, take care of yourselves.